Hello, darkness, my old friend. You've come to talk with me again. Sens lose 5-3 to the Vegas Golden Knights. Well, that one game-winning streak was nice while it lasted. With Ubergate hopefully in the rearview mirror, we can finally move forward and talk about hockey for a while. The Sens gave us plenty of things to talk about, including a decent start, a poor middle, a decent end, and some questionable decision-making. As always, though, before we get into the game, let's talk lineup changes. He's back! After a 9-game absence, Brady Tkachuk makes his return to the Sens lineup. And, after sitting out Tuesday's game, Mark Borowiecki also made his return to the lineup. And, despite leaving the game early on Tuesday, both Craig Anderson and Bobby Ryan were good to go, and both were in the lineup. With those guys drawing in, the Sens would need to make some room in the lineup for them. Jack Rodewald was returned to Belleville to make room for Tkachuk, and Max McCormick was a healthy scratch to make room for Boro, as the Sens went back to 11-7. Eric Bergdorfer was the other scratch for the Sens, and Craig Anderson got the start in goal. Early on, the fresh bodies seemed to make a difference for the Sens, as Boro had a couple early chances, and the Sens carried the play for the early part of the period. Unfortunately, they couldn't find the back of the net. And that would prove costly, as the Knights got a power play. Oh boy, the Sens to the penalty kill. And I had reason to be concerned. Jonathan Marchessault picks up a Nate Schmidt pass and steps up to the top of the circle before wiring a wrist shot by Anderson to give the Knights a 1-0 advantage. And we had another screen on the play. And lo and behold, the reason we had the screen was because Riley Smith was allowed to stand in front of the net untouched. The real estate sale? Apparently it's still on. And late in the period, the Knights go to the power play again. Carlson feeds Theodore, he slaps it by Anderson, and the Knights' lead is 2-0. Just wow. The goal goes in because of a 4-person screen. Alex Tuck is standing at the hash marks untouched. Behind him are Boro and Yarrow standing beside each other not doing anything. And then standing behind them and right in front of Anderson was monster Ryan Reeves. Anderson had no chance to see that one. Just wonderful, too. The first goal is the result of an unmanned screen in front of Anderson. And the second goal was the result of 2 Knights and 2 Sens standing in front of Anderson. The Sens didn't seem interested in doing anything on the play either. For sale. Real estate in front of the Sens net? Asking? A penny. Chris? Pennies aren't a thing anymore. Oh, well in that case, just have it. They haven't been charging for that space yet. Why start now? You would think Mr. Melnick would get upset about giving away free product and would do something about it. I guess not. Of all the things the Sens have struggled with this season, this is by far the most frustrating. You aren't going to win hockey games if you don't cover players in front of your net. They didn't, twice, gave up power play goals, twice, and trailed 2-0 after the first period. Things don't get any better in the second period either, as Nick Holden blows by Tom Pyatt and sneaks a shot by Craig Anderson to give the Knights a 3-0 lead. At least they had someone covering the front of the net this time, but a weak stick check on Holden left him all alone. Just not enough commitment to defense. Thankfully, the tent stays pegged in the ground, the Sens stay on site, and don't go home early. Thomas Chabot leads the rush, Marc-Andre Fleury pokes it off his stick, Matt Duchene picks up the rebound and bangs it home, and the Sens are down just 3-1 now. Chabot again shows he's quickly becoming a top-flight defenseman in this league, as he led the rush, picked up an assist, and got his first of 2 points on the night. What a big-time goal, too. Put an end to the Knights' run just 29 seconds after they made it 3-0, and score with just over 2 minutes left in the period. Perfect. That's a huge momentum builder, and we saw that early in the third. Just under 7 minutes into the period, Ryan Dzingle's hungry, man. He's hungry for the rubber and hungry for goals. He gets both of those as he steals the puck off Nasek, who picked up an errant Mark Borowiecki shot. He turns around, fires it by the glove of Marc-Andre Fleury, and the Sens are down just 3-2. Let's go, boys! And just over a minute after that, a bouncing puck lands on the stick of Chabot, and with Fleury turned around and out of position, Chabot easily puts the puck in the net, and we're tied. Let's go! Wait, excuse me? They're challenging for goalie interference on the play? Here we go. If they call that back, I'm turning the game off and never watching hockey again. No one touched Fleury. He dove, and that's what put him out of position. That has to count. And sure enough, the referee comes back and says, yes indeed it does count. And, just like that, we're tied 3-3 with 11:59 to play. But just over a minute after that, Carrier picks up the puck behind the net and cuts in front of the net, backhanding a shot over the arm of Anderson to give the Knights a 4-3 lead. Ugh! Right after tying the game, too. That's such a tough goal. The Sens didn't really do anything wrong on this play, other than maybe losing the puck battle along the wall. But they were in really solid position. Carrier just made a nice shot. Let's get her back, boys. You dug yourselves out of a 3-0 hole, you can easily get yourself out of a 4-3 disadvantage. But the comeback bid takes another hit. Bellemare taps the puck into the empty net, and the Knights lead 5-3. Wait a minute. Why was the net empty? No, seriously. How'd the Knights get an empty net? And where's Andy? No, really. Where'd Andy go? William Carrier stands up, and... oh, there he is. No wonder the Knights had an empty net, and no wonder I couldn't find Andy. Carrier was laying on top of him. Being a Canadian, I watched the Canadian broadcast of the game. Both Ray Ferraro and Gord Miller said immediately upon the puck going in, that one will be called back. So, naturally, the Sens challenge for goalie interference on the play. But it's the Sens. They get hosed more often than not. And sure enough, they were soaking wet on this play. After video review, there was no goaltender interference. The call on the ice stands. We have a good goal. Do you have any clue? Because it sure seems like you don't. 6 games and 2 weeks later, and they still have no clue. Carrier trips on the leg of Anderson as he skates by. The contact comes outside the blue paint, so we'll call that fine. Then he falls on Anderson and makes no attempt to move until after the puck goes in. Carrier laid on Anderson for just over 3 seconds. How long does it have to be before a goal doesn't count? Dear Sens, there's a new rule in the NHL. If the goalie's outside of his blue paint, you can use him as a mattress. Please take advantage of that new rule. And when all the goalies start getting hurt, the NHL can answer for that. The precedent has been set. Actually, to be honest, the precedent was set a long time ago. Just ask the Oilers, who saw a goal in the playoffs count despite a Ducks player holding on to Cam Talbot's equipment. Or ask the Leafs, who had a goal called back last year even though Austin Matthews made the slightest bit of contact with the goalie. Even though the Avalanche goalie had no idea where the puck was or even had any chance to save it, they still called it back for some reason. When I say the NHL doesn't have a clue, I mean they literally have no clue. My bet is they have a dartboard. They turn their head away from the dartboard and chuck a dart. Wherever it lands up, that's the decision they go with. At that rate, just flip a coin. You'll save us all some time. Regardless, the goal counts, and the Sens trail 5-3 with a few minutes to play. The home side fails to score, and the Knights skate away with a 5-3 win. As easy as it would be for me to blame the refs, and believe me, I'm appalled and extremely angry at that egregious call, but the truth is, the Sens did enough to earn that loss themselves. The Sens never did score again. Whether they would have or not, I have no idea, but as it stands, they didn't. So even if that goal didn't count, they still would have lost 4-3. Yes, it drastically changed momentum, and likely drove a stake into the Sens' hearts. But you have to keep playing, and you have to keep grinding. But the truth is, the Sens lost this game long before we ever got to the third period. Not covering guys in front of your own net, taking early penalties, putting early pressure on an already struggling penalty kill. Digging an early 2-0 hole, playing very poorly for long stretches of the second period, digging a 3-0 hole with just under 24 minutes to play. These are all reasons that contributed to the Sens losing this game. Yes, they made a comeback bid, and yes, the goalie interference call hurt, but if you show up early, you don't need so many things to go your way late. Plus, the fact they let the line of Reeves, Bellemare, and Carrier dominate them all night long. That just cannot happen. That's a fourth line with an enforcer who's barely staying in the league, making you look that bad. The good news is, they were able to make a game of it despite all of those issues. They showed they can handle momentum decently at times, scoring quickly after the Knights scored to make it 3-0, and scoring twice right in a row to turn a 3-1 game into a 3-3 tie. They also showed they're willing and able to keep fighting, even after a tough few weeks. Keeping their spirits high enough to keep them in games, instead of things falling apart like they did against Buffalo, will be key for the rest of the season, both for this team and for my sanity. Of course, that ties me into my bad news. Inconsistency. This team is inconsistent in all areas. They don't cover the front of the net, they don't play a full 60 minutes, They can't kill penalties, they start games slowly or finish them terribly. I can't think of the last time this team played even decently for a full 60 minutes. It's either up or down with these guys. Last night, they had many flashes of good and many flashes of bad. Against the Devils, they were down 2-0 early. Against the Lightning, they collapsed late. Against the Sabres in Buffalo, they never showed up at all. Against the Sabres in Ottawa, they fell apart in the third period, but barely hung on to win. They barely showed up against the Coyotes. They collapsed against the Knights. They collapsed against the Avalanche. They collapsed against the Bruins. And they had to dig themselves out of a 2-0 hole against the Habs. That's 10 straight games where this team has either not shown up at all, started poorly, or finished terribly. That's the next order of business. Get this team playing more consistent hockey. Next up, the Sens head out on a 2-game Florida road trip. Their first action comes Saturday when they take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. The two teams, they've played once so far this season, with the Lightning winning 4-3 in overtime in Ottawa last Sunday. Ottawa blew a pair of third-period leads in the game, including giving up the tying goal in the final minute, before losing in the first minute of overtime. This contest will be a real challenge for the Sens, who take on a Lightning team that are tops in the NHL right now with a 12-3-1 record. And the Lightning, they're coming in fresh off a 4-2 win over the New York Islanders last night. Stamkos, Kucherov, Miller, Johnson, Gord, and Point all got in on the action last night. That's going to be the challenge for the Sens on Saturday night. Pick your poison. This isn't going to be a night where the Sens can match up against the Lightning top line and shut them down. The Lightning have 2 top lines, so the Sens are going to need everybody on board. And with the game in Tampa, line matching is going to be nearly impossible for the Sens anyway. Be aware and be ready. See ya Saturday night.